Welcome, folks. Welcome back to another episode. I think this is now episode 5, actually, Jack, already, of the Kentucky Roundball Roundup. I am your co-host, Zack Attack. We also have the other co-host, Jag Attack. And
Boom, I love that.
New tagline right there. So today we're going to be discussing two of the season openers for the Kentucky women's and men's basketball teams. We have lots to talk about, oddly enough. I mean, not oddly enough, I guess, because we haven't talked about it in 8 months, but there was plenty that went along. So, Jack, you want to go ahead and kind of start us off with the men? We'll start with the men's team here, and kind of what are we going to talk about here for these opening minutes?
So you guys know that I tend to be one of the more optimistic individuals. I tend to, set high expectations. I think that I have said on numerous occasions on this show that I think this is a very, very, very good Kentucky basketball team. I've said that I think that they are definitely in position to contend for a national championship. And I got to admit, I had a little bit of, some nerves set in just a little bit before the game, just because, you go on these shows, I also do my Source to Say podcast, but, I also do my Source to Say podcast. And, every chance I've gotten to, go on KSR this summer or whatever the case is, I have used my platforms to always hype this team up because, I liked last year's team, but I had some questions about them. They were in position to, they made a strong run there at the end. They could have possibly made a run in the championship, but they didn't look the part of a national title team. But watching this team through all the recruiting events and all that stuff that I've gone to, seeing these kids kind of go from juniors in high schools to superstar seniors, going to see all of the, I think I've seen every single one. I think every single kid on this roster, at least the newcomers, I've seen in person. So I personally was like, yeah, I am vouching for this team. I think
you're invested.
I got invested, and part of me leading up to tip off was like, man, what if they come out here and just stink? What if they just suck? What are the odds of that? And I'm going to look like the biggest moron. So nerves set in just a little bit, and it took almost no time for me to go, yeah, I was right. I'm pretty confident that this is a very, very good basketball team. I believe they extended their lead to 20 points, leading up to halftime. I think they extended it to 30 in the just the first couple minutes of the second half, and then led by as many as 39 before the game was over. So really the game, I mean, from start to finish, they, threw the first punch, they threw the first haymaker, and instead of, kind of backing off and playing down to their competition a little bit after realizing that they are the more dominant team, they kept throwing punches and haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, and led to a very early knockout punch that, it was a very convincing victory, one that I came away feeling very, very impressed with. Think of last year with the Evansville game and some of the other, lower end competition, teams that Kentucky played against, that teams that UK should have won by 20 plus, 30 plus, they would win by 8 or 9 or 10 or 15-point wins that didn't make you feel all warm and fuzzy afterward. That was one of the main things I was hoping with this team, is that they would come out, realize that, yeah, we are better than this team, we're longer than this team, we're stronger than this team, we're more athletic than this team, and realize it from start to finish and convert on a massive blowout victory. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, so just to recap, Kentucky did win 81-45 in that game. We had 4 players scoring double digits. Minutes went across everywhere. Who were you most impressed by just early? Name your 2 guys that most impressed you that weren't named BJ Boston.
Terrence Clark, by far, he was the one guy. I think I wrote in KSR, maybe said on this show that that he was one guy that I was really hoping would kind of, assert himself very early as a guy. I think somebody tweeted something along the lines of Terrence Clark isn't going to be a lottery pick this year or something. And I think he liked that tweet almost like all right.
Who said that? Who tweeted that?
I think it was like a name your hot take for this Kentucky basketball team. And it was like Terrence Clark Terrence Clark wasn't going to be a lottery pick, and he liked it like right before the game started, the day of.
You love
So
that.
part of me was kind of like, he's going to come out with an edge. He's going to come in there looking to prove something, and he did. I thought at 6'7", long wingspan. I mean, just kind of that bulky. You could tell he has an NBA ready body, and he showed that. I mean, against a bunch of guards that flat out could not guard him. They couldn't stay in front of him. He was the most, I'd say, physically overwhelming player on the team yesterday, or on Wednesday evening, just because he was able to overpower everybody. He was able to beat everybody off the dribble. I mean, just he was able to get to spaces and get to places on the floor that, wherever he wanted, in whatever the circumstance was. He was a guy that if he wanted to go out there and score 30-plus points, he could have, because there wasn't anybody on Morehead State that could slow him down or stop him in the slightest. So that was definitely something that I kind of, I think he loaded the stat sheet. I think he finished with, was it 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals? Is that stat line off the top of my head?
Let's see. He had 12 points, 4 steals, or 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, only 2
3
turnovers.
steals.
Went 5 for 9.
Yeah. So, I mean, just very efficient. I mean, some of the things
minutes.
he had that baseline up and under finish. He had a couple really impressive floaters that
steal at half court was one of my favorite moments.
Yeah. I mean, just both ends of the floor. I mean, he was just that long, twitchy body that really, can cover space. I think I said on this show after UK Pro Day that there was one moment of Pro Day where he was running baseline and it took like 2 full strides, and he went from one corner 3 to the other. And I was like, man, that's an NBA looking, stride. That's a dude that can cover a lot of space very quickly. Kind of like those viral videos of Giannis Antetokounmpo, taking 4 glides from one free throw line to the other on the other end of the court, where you're like, whoa, that's pretty nuts. Terrence Clark, obviously not Giannis, but that's similar, where you see him do things and you're like, that's an NBA player right there. So Terrence is definitely the guy that definitely stole a show for me immediately. And then
before you get into your second guy, let me kind of go ahead and just point some things out here. Obviously, I think Kentucky looked very good, but I think we need to kind of establish the fact that it was still Morehead State, and their best player was. Remember, the best player actually had torn their ACL the week before when we were talking about on the show the other day. So missing him, Morehead State wasn't exactly good last year. They weren't exactly expected to be good this year. So that's where I'll temper some of the expectations. But kind of to go in, Brandon Ramsey actually for KSR made a bunch of points in one of the articles earlier today, talking about how, the small things that we can take away from this game, as far as not necessarily just physically overpowering them, but kind of what you were saying, like how Terrence Clark is just long and is just longer than all, like just some of the smaller aspects of the game that you won't necessarily think about when you're watching a team win by 45 points, but they're there, and I think those were the things that I was looking for personally. So kind of like what you were talking about with Terrence Clark, and when I mentioned that half court steal, it's just those little like the simple things of the game is what they really did well.
Yeah, I thought. And I will say, being totally honest, Terrence Clark is a guy that developed a reputation in high school and across the AAU circuit, and even Calipari has said it on numerous occasions that he is a cocky kid. He is one that, carries a swagger to him, but almost a level of arrogance, at least at the high school level. He had a level of arrogance to him that if there was one player on the roster that you would think might play down to the competition because he's overlooking them and looking ahead to the Richmonds of the world, the Kansases of the world, the Louisvilles of the world, the UK's upcoming opponents, I would have assumed that it would be Terrence Clark. And I thought he was one of the most locked in players on the entire team. I thought from the jump, he was locked in and ready to go. And again, yes, it's Morehead State. And I wrote the game recap afterward, and I compared the team. Okay, this is a team that is 10 deep. We played 10 players, 10 scholarship players, would have played 11 if Keon Brooks was healthy. This is a team that is physically overwhelming in length, size, just pure skill, pure athleticism, that it's not the 2014-15 team at all. This is not a 38-1 team. That was one of the best teams we have ever seen with our own two eyes at the college level. But the same way they overwhelmed opponents where, the first unit is just, throwing jab after jab and just wearing them out, overpowering, just being physical, tearing them down. And then the second unit comes in and you have, Draeon Edwards coming in as just a spark plug.
Who
off
looked
the
really
bench.
good. Impressed me a little bit more than I thought he would.
Yeah, that spark plug offensive piece off the bench. And you have, Cameron Fletcher, who I thought was just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Very, very, just very, very impressed with what he brought to the table. He's the guy that filled a role that Khalil Whitney should have filled last year.
Playing some
which is very
on the wing,
which is very frustrating to me because Calipari kind of told Khalil Whitney going into last year, hey, you're not physically there yet. Your skill isn't quite there yet, but you can go out there and fill a role on this team that nobody can do right now with your length, athleticism, and just motor. If you go out there and just be a strong perimeter defender and hit a corner three every now and then, be there for putback dunks, be there for cleanup plays, you're going to have a role on this team. Khalil Whitney was not willing to accept that role. Cameron Fletcher, one game into his career, and Cameron Fletcher is a guy that, talking to people in recruiting circles, AAU circles, he was a guy that a lot of people penciled in as an immediate transfer guy, that he's not going to last. They said, his personality is just going to clash. He doesn't have the work ethic. He doesn't have the right frame of mind to fit at Kentucky. And, I've said this on this show before. He's a guy that I am rooting for pretty hard because he had those naysayers coming in his college career that said he wasn't willing to put in that work, that said that he wasn't going to, be able to make it from a personality standpoint. And I thought from the jump, Cameron Fletcher showed more in one single game than we got in a single game from Khalil Whitney at all last year. Is that fair? Is that fair? You
could even say the whole season, honestly.
I genuinely thought that Cameron Fletcher was more impactful in one game than we got out of Khalil Whitney at all. And Khalil's a great kid. He, had some people in his ear telling him that he is something that he's not yet, and kind of led to his professional route. I'm rooting for him. I hope he makes it with the Charlotte Hornets. Good for him for, finding that role. Good, great on him. But what his Kentucky career was what it was. It was underwhelming. And I kind of my measuring stick for Cameron Fletcher's career was Khalil Whitney, what his role was supposed to be, and he came in and filled it immediately. And I think going back to the initial question, who were your two players? It was Terrence Clark, number one, and Draeon Edwards and Cameron Fletcher as kind of 2A, 2B for me.
Cool. Wait, so who was that first guy you just said? Draeon
Edwards. You kind of mentioned him in passing. And it was more so my comfort level with the point guard position as a whole, just because I thought
he proved very quickly that he could be just a catch and shoot guy. I feel like we need those type of guys, especially now in the current game. You need a catch and shoot guy very, very badly.
I think Devin Askew fits what Kentucky is looking for in the starting lineup better than Draeon Edwards does in a way that Devin Askew is without a doubt the better floor general. He's, I think his court vision is better. I think, he's a guy that alongside BJ Boston, Terrence Clark, and, throwing lobs to Isaiah Jackson, being able to feed Olivier Sarr in the post, having that floor general with your starting lineup is much more effective than, I think that second lineup needs that scoring punch that Draeon Edwards provides, where you get the floor general with Devin Askew with the other scoring pieces. You get the scoring piece in the second unit with the other facilitating role players with that second unit. I think given both of their roles and given, who they are playing alongside with both units, I think it's a perfect match the way the lineup is fit and how things are laid out right now. I wouldn't change a single thing if I were Calipari.
So I do agree that Devin Askew is very, very much a floor general type guy. He's obviously going to run this offense for the time being, no matter what happens. I agree with that. Although I will say I think Draeon Edwards is probably the better player right now, if you're just talking about in terms of a whole. Because I will say, like, Devin, he played well, but I thought there were a lot of things that he didn't do great, like in terms of what a Cal point guard wants. I thought he had a lot of really bad, poor turnovers where he just kind of tossed the ball away. I don't think we're going to get anything close to I don't think we had any expectations like this, but we're not going to get anything close to like a John Wall or anything like that out of him. You're going to be looking at more of like a Marcus Teague type deal, which, obviously Marcus Teague would be a good comparison if we're trying to take that route. So, but that's kind of where I'm at on Askew.
The Devin Askew is
only one game. I will say
yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, he's going to have freshman turnovers. That's part of why he is, him with the other pieces around him. They don't need Devin Askew to play perfect basketball right now. They need him to facilitate well for the other offensive pieces on the floor. And if they need a catch and shoot guy, he will provide that. I thought some of the most beautiful basketball Kentucky played against Morehead State was when they would get the ball inside to Olivier Sarr, or I think there was another situation. It went to Isaiah Jackson, who got double team, fed it at the free throw line to Jacob Toppin, who swung it over to the wing for Devin Askew. But on two separate occasions, it was a toss the ball inside to one of UK's star front court pieces. The defenders clog inside, hoping to double team and trap and make the interior player uncomfortable. Made a smart pass out for a wide open look for Devin Askew, and he converted on two of three attempts. The other attempt was a little bit funkier, but in that catch and shoot, hey, this we're giving you the alley, we're giving you the easy attempt to make a name for yourself, to kind of prove your role here. He converted on both of them. And I was like, boom, perfect. That's exactly what we need out of Devin Askew. Be the facilitator. Don't screw up too much. Still be that assist guy. Still bring to the table what you're good at. We'll live with some of the mistakes, knowing that Davion Mintz is coming in with that second unit to be that immediate scoring punch, which is, would he have 10 points in 17 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just very efficient basketball from Davion Mintz. I like I said, I just think the chemistry, the formula that Calipari has right now, and again, it's been 1 minute, one game. We have seen 40 minutes of Kentucky basketball so far. We can't make any massive assumptions outside of what we already knew going into it to see if some of those thoughts were confirmed with this game, or you can still have positive takeaways and negative takeaways, frankly, if there were any, but nothing about this team changed in game one than it did in my expectations leading up to it. And I think that's what makes me so excited for the future. As high as my expectations were, they're still exactly at the same place.
No, and I agree. And Morehead State, they shot 3 for 21 from three and missed half their free throws. So there's also small random things like that are just appear to make the game closer than it really was. But going back to what you're about Askew, it's very clear that he, like you were saying, he knows his role, and he knows that his role is to feed off of BJ Boston and Terrence Clark, which I think is one of the major keys, is that he obviously knows from the jump that he's not going to be the guy that has to come in and fill up the box score. So that's good on its own that he realizes that. The fact that he showed that he can score if he needs to was really good. Just the playmaking kind of got to me a little bit at times, but when you have Davion Mintz that can come in and do that kind of, like, if you want to compare it to NBA level, like a Jordan Clarkson type role, like come off the bench and just score points whenever and however he needs to. So that's definitely a fantastic 1-2 punch right there.
Zach, and I'll ask you this, because I had a thought during the game, and I want to see what you think about it. Olivier Sarr didn't get his first basket until the second half. He had 0 points and 2 rebounds at the end of the first half, and I think or maybe he was 0 and 0. I think did he have 0.0 rebounds at halftime? Whatever it was, it took at least until the second half for him to score his first points, and it might have even been until the second half till he got his first rebounds. At the very least, very late in the first half. Didn't need him. I mean, I'm going to be totally honest. He's how crazy is it that Kentucky's guard play was so impressive and obviously, 1 through 4, 1 through 3, Kentucky was so impressive and got so much production that Kentucky didn't need their third best player. They didn't. A dude that put up 30 and 18 last year against Notre Dame, 25 and 15 against, the dude has put up monster numbers against legitimate competition, and Kentucky flat out did not need him on Wednesday night against Morehead State.
Mm-hmm. And they will eventually as the season toils along, and they'll absolutely need him against a better team like Kansas that, can actually bang down low with him. Because for Olivier Sarr, after all the time he spent in the ACC going up against them, you saw in the second half, he can just put up those points if he needs to, but they didn't need to feed him. They didn't need to play him. He only played 21 minutes. It's just a team again, like Morehead. I didn't think we needed to see him. So with Olivier Sarr, I remember last time, I think some of the things that I wanted to see were under 10 turnovers, which they had 15. So, but that's whatever. Cause I thought overall they did a good job in that area, but I wanted to see what Olivier Sarr actually is, and I don't think we actually just got a chance to do that. So I think once we can get a couple more games in the season and see that Kansas game where he's actually going to go up against some big guys, we'll see if Cal actually wants to go in and feed him or play more in and out with him or stuff like that. So I do kind of agree with you that they just didn't need him, and maybe the best thing for this team would be Olivier Sarr being like the fourth best player. And maybe someone like by the end of the season, like Askew or Isaiah Jackson being that third best player. Maybe that's what's actually best for this team in the long run, just as we've kind of seen in previous years that if you've got the guards and the wings, that's really all you need to win. Like you don't necessarily need a big imposing big to make a Final Four or win a championship. And I think when you have two superstar wing players, that's a bigger advantage than most teams. So like you said, Olivier Sarr, we didn't need him, but I think we will eventually, just not nearly as big of a terms as BJ or Terrence.
And I think the kind of the bigger takeaway out of all of that is last year it felt that Kentucky needed Ashton Hagans, Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickley, and Nick Richards all to be thriving in order to look overwhelmingly dominant, for them to look like a title contender, for them to look the part of a at times they just look like a bad basketball team. I mean, not forget title contender, making a big run, forget all that stuff. There were times they just looked like a flat out horrible basketball team because one or two of those pieces were not living up to their hype.
And just the overall talent level, I think, is the big part of that because, we saw Tyrese go 21 in the draft, and there's a good chance that we could have 3 lottery picks off this team. So in that aspect, if Tyrese did have an off game, that was terrible because there was no one good enough to come in. But, if BJ has a bad game, Terrence Clark is better than Tyrese Maxey. So
that's kind of like the boom big picture takeaway that I had from this game was
the talent level is just much better.
Olivier Sarr is a damn good basketball player. Very, very, very talented basketball player.
Would he have been the best player on last year's team?
Probably not. I'd still say Tyrese Maxey, in terms of just pure talent, is obviously a step, and it's apples and oranges comparing guards to big men
in terms of what we're looking for.
But just pure, it's role. I mean, it's all about role. I mean, what we need out of Olivier Sarr is exactly what he provided against Morehead State was, when we need you, please step up. They didn't need him until, they got that second half. I think they found him on that fast break alley-oop, kind of got, an extra little, they didn't need another punch, a punch of excitement, a little bit of momentum. They didn't need it. But it was yet another thing where it's like, all right, yep, we're rolling. Cats are rolling.
Well, that's that's like not letting off the gas, like kind of what last year's team had sometimes a habit of doing. So we didn't see that once on Wednesday, which is definitely good, even if it is against a team like Morehead State. So
there is an asterisk next to the high expectation after this game because it is Morehead State.
Any hot take has an asterisk.
Don't let this take away from your, I don't want fans to look at that game and be like, well, it's just Morehead State. Who cares if they blew them out? this team last year could not blow a team out like that. They just physically could not. Whatever the case was, we sat there so many times and said, what are we missing here? Why can we not beat Evansville by 100? Why can we not beat I think UK beat EKU by 22 points last year, I think, and that was the most, wow, we finally put it all together game. And it was a 22-point win. That team last year, they had some tough, grinded out victories. They came together and they just found a way to win. But
part of that is what you're saying with everyone was working together once SEC started, as Cal got them all to just play on the same page. And that was key.
Yeah. We never could get a dominating, overwhelming victory. We just physically couldn't. In game one, we got that. Kentucky should have beaten Morehead State by 40 points, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
That's ultimate takeaway.
Yep.
Kentucky should have beaten Morehead State by as much as they did, and they did. And that's what made me happy about it.
You got any more thoughts on this game, or what do you think? I'm sure you got something.
Kind of interested to see where Keon Brooks fits back into the equation. Got to be honest, this team,
8 players played over 17 minutes.
I'm a big fan.
Granted, it was a blowout, but you got to think about that as well. Where does Keon fit in those?
I'm a big fan of this rotation exactly how it is right now. I'll be honest, I don't take I think I read or saw somewhere that the one, if there's one thing to kind of favor Keon Brooks in the starting lineup instead of Isaiah Jackson is we kind of saw what happens when the foul trouble hits very early, because outside of Isaiah Jackson and Olivier Sarr, it was Jacob Toppin and Lance Ware. Yeah. Like that was the front court, and that will obviously change and be a little bit more flexible. They'll get a little bit more leeway whenever Keon Brooks is back, because that is such a dynamic, front court piece at the power forward spot. So, kind of tough to have any major takeaways about the front court right now. But if there was any major weakness that you could kind of see on this team was, okay, what does happen with this group whenever foul trouble does come? Where do they go if Isaiah Jackson and Olivier Sarr? Is Keon Brooks going to be able to counter that? Say both BJ Boston and Terrence Clark are having a rough game and they can't buy, this team can't buy a shot from deep, whatever the case is. Can Keon Brooks kind of be that stable force? What does he bring to the table on this team? He just picked up so much confidence there at the end of the season, and I really want him to keep building on that, but still not try to do the PJ Washington sophomore year jump. Just feel the need that, okay, every time I touch the ball, I got to do something with it. I'm the sophomore guy. I should be the one to, take this game over and be Mr. Production. UK doesn't need that from Keon, and I hope he doesn't take that personally. I want Keon
that good to do that.
If Keon plays the exact same role that he was last year, especially toward the end of the year, where he was just that solid six-man, solid, strong piece off the bench, even if he starts just that solid complementary piece, Kentucky's golden. If he doesn't overdo himself, Kentucky's golden, and I think it's just going to be interesting to see how he fits back into things once he returns back onto the floor.
Well, but the next time we do this podcast, we could be saying the complete opposite, with games against Richmond, potential NCAA tournament team, and then Kansas. So we'll definitely figure out we'll figure out what exactly we are here very, very soon.
Yeah, this next week will be make or break. I'm telling you, hear me out. This is my one promise to you.
Uh-oh.
Hear me out.
We're doing hot takes.
If Kentucky goes out and dominates against Richmond and plays very well against – think of that 2014-15 team. The one moment where we all said, oh, this team is what we think it is, was the Kansas game when they won 72-40 or whatever it was. That was the one time where somebody posted the stat line of it, I think yesterday, and nobody had a great game on that group. It was every individual effort was like fine, nothing special. Nobody had a 30-point blowout game. I mean, it was just, it was fine, but they still won by 32 points. And I was just like, okay, maybe this team is what we think it is. Kansas, after that Kansas game, if there is a similar, if they blow out Kansas in a similar fashion, even if
Gonzaga
it's
style.
15, yes, if Kentucky wins in that 10 to 15 point, even 15, 20 point range, I'm coming on this podcast guns a-blazing. Hot take central.
I'm gonna have to get the bleep button ready.
That is going to be me after that game. And if they go out and they don't look the part, I'll come right back and I'll be like, yeah, maybe I was wrong, maybe I was overdoing it to start with. I'll take the blame. That's fine with that. I'm okay with that. I'll take the blame. But I'm very excited for these next two games, just in the slight possibility that they look the part of that wow team.
You haven't seen Kentucky basketball in 9 months. You're a little excited, I think.
Just let me live my life. Let me dream big, Zach. I feel like I owe it to myself.
Hey, we're back.
I feel like I owe it to myself.
Well,
that's all I have for it.
Let's transition then, because we had another blowout win on Wednesday, but under incredibly different circumstances. So,
yeah,
the women's team came out and smacked Murray State 86-60. Was not particularly close outside of maybe the first 40 seconds of the game. So, but that wasn't the story. The story was the fact that exactly 1 hour before tip-off, I received an email saying that Ryan Howard and Tatiana Wyatt will not be playing, and they'll be suspended for 2 and 3 games, 2 for Ryan, 3 for Tatiana, for basically stuff that they won't tell us about. No one knows. I won't even try and get into, the conspiracy theories of whatever it is.
They said it was not COVID related, though.
So
right?
the way that they asked the question, it's not COVID. Like, they don't have COVID or anything like that.
But yeah.
Our, what we've kind of been texting in the group chat, and obviously don't take anything what we're about to say here seriously, but is that maybe, they broke COVID protocols or something along those lines, and Coach Elsie
team COVID protocols.
Yeah, because Tatiana's
they broke their own bubble.
Yeah. Tatiana's was 3 games for violating team rules, and Ryan's was 2 for not upholding team standards or program standards. So very those are always in-house punishments. And that's exactly what Coach Elsie said after the game. She said, look, I'm not going to go into details. Someone asked if it was COVID related. She said, no, it's not COVID related. She was the most we got out of her was she's like, they made a bad mistake. And, the way I read that is they just did something stupid off campus. And
we said, we kind of, we speculated in our group chat that it wasn't that Ryan got the 2 games because she knew about it and didn't say anything. And the 3-game suspension was for actually doing it.
Yeah,
maybe
something breaking the COVID protocols.
That's just us speculating. Trying to play the odds. If they're doing something together, why wouldn't they both get 3 games? It would only make sense. And this is, again, 100% pure speculation. We could be completely off the rails here.
And probably are.
It kind of feels like it's one person did it, the other person knew about it and didn't talk about it, and just let it happen.
And if I had to guess, I would say it wasn't even anything serious. I definitely think it was more of a Coach Elsie saying, look, y'all better start taking this shit seriously, because I'm not screwing around. And even watching Coach Elsie in that first game on the sidelines, she's very much different from Matthew Mitchell in a lot of ways, just in how they, because not to go after her or anything, but Coach Elsie was getting on to these players the entire game. No matter what the score was, she was ruthless. And one of the first things I noticed is Matthew Mitchell was, he did the dance at Big Blue Madness, loved all that stuff. There was a point during the game where Kentucky was up by 20 points in maybe the third quarter. And there was, for some reason, it was a long extended break during the timeout. All the players were just standing on the free throw line, waiting literally with the ref with the ball in their hand for them to blow the whistle. And a song was playing, and Kiki Mckinney and Olivia Owens kind of were dancing there. And Kyra Elsie on the sideline stands up and yells, stop that right now. And immediately they stopped real quick and then got to playing. So that's something that Kiki loves to dance, and she was doing that stuff all year last year, and not once did Matthew Mitchell say anything about it. So
gotta set the tone.
Immediately
gotta set the tone.
She's not taking any shit. She's just not. And I thought that was awesome, and I definitely think that was part of what they're doing. So
now let me ask you, considering the fact that UK was missing 2 of their most significant standout pieces. How
Oh, I'm sorry.
confident?
My mic was unplugged there. What'd you just say?
Just saying, considering Kentucky was without two of their most standout pieces, are inarguably their biggest standout piece in Ryan Howard. How much more confident are you in this team? Again, considering the competition, we get all that, knowing that they were still able to go out there and look the way they did.
So I still anticipated them to win by as much as they did without Ryan, just because the gap between Power 5 and non-Power 5 in women's basketball is greater than it is in men's basketball. So you could just tell that, even without Ryan, that Kentucky still had just an unbelievable amount of talent surrounded. It's not like they had a bunch of freshmen coming in or something like that. They had SEC players, veterans, players that have won trophies before. So by no means did I expect anything like that, like an upset. So 26 points was I expected 30. That's what I said last time, was 30 plus, and that was with Ryan. So 26 without Ryan was good enough. But the biggest takeaway had to be Chastity Patterson putting up 30 points without Ryan immediately.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, immediately proving that she can be the second best player on this team and a go-to scorer, which you absolutely need. You need a very, very good secondary scorer, which Kentucky didn't necessarily have last year. They kind of had it in Chastity Patterson, but she was still growing into that role. She only got to play the back end of last year. So now she's had the full off season and all that to finally prepare for it. She came out, she was attacking immediately. She was going right to the rim. She's like 5'6", but went into the trees, shot like 9 free throws in the first half, finished with, I think, 14 attempts. Was hitting all her shots, was playing very good pick and roll basketball with Olivia Owens, who looked fantastic on the block as the 6'4" center that they finally needed.
I will say that was my big, one thing I was looking out for. Very excited about the debut of Olivia Owens last time, just saying.
Yeah, she looked great.
Not to toot my own horn, but I was very excited about that.
She had like 9 points and 8 rebounds, I think, something along those lines. So exactly
what they needed.
Yeah, she was rim running. That was great, as she proved that she can run the floor, and Chastity Patterson was rewarding her as well. So definitely the biggest takeaway was that, especially when Ryan gets back, Kentucky is going to have a second player that can come out and just pour in points whenever they want. Now, the next thing is going to be trying to find number 3, which is really how you would establish, a Final Four team. So we had a couple of options that kind of popped up after, obviously, still first game, Murray State, but Treasure Hunt, the freshman, looked pretty good coming out. Most of her scoring opportunities were more catch and shoot type deals. So same kind of deal with Blair Green, who actually did look much, much better in her debut game. She looked better in that game than she did in any game as a sophomore. So I was very happy to see that. I'm not sure if we're going to find that third go-to scorer just yet, or I don't know if I can give you an idea of who it's going to be right now. But Chastity Patterson definitely being number 2 was our biggest takeaway. And then the 3 freshmen overall I will talk about for a second, because Kyra Elzy eased them in. She had all 3 freshmen go in last. I think she played all 11 rotation players before she let, or 8 rotation players before she let the 3 freshmen get in. So, and Treasure was actually the last one to get in. She still ended up with 12 points, I think, or something like that. But Erin Toller came in and she did a lot better than I thought she would. She was fearless, came out, looked like she can quickly fill in any reserve point guard minutes that they might need whenever Chastity Patterson's out, however many that might be. Naya Leveretter was easily the most athletic player on the court at 6'3". You could tell, how like with Willie Cauley-Stein, it was always like, did you know he played football in high school? But Naya Leveretter is always going to be, did you know she played volleyball in high school? Because she jumps over everyone and just gets every tip ball. And she was doing that against, granted, I don't think Murray State had anyone over like 6'2" or 6'3". So she was more or less the taller one there, but she was out jumping them by, over a foot. So the freshmen impressed me. I don't think there was really any bad necessarily takeaways. I mean, they forced I have some of the stats here. They forced 32 turnovers. Chastity Patterson had 8 of them herself. She was literally just picking off girls in the backcourt. It was there was points where it was actually like I was laughing. I was chuckling while I was sitting there.
Yeah.
Courtside. And they kind of tempered off as the game went along. Like the first half, they played really, really, really well. Like looked like a fantastic team. They shot 47 from the field, 5 for 13 from three. But then in the second half, they dipped down to 33% from the field, 21% from three. I think part of that was just fatigue and just various factors of, winning by so much. But I would like to see them do that still for a whole game. And instead of winning 86-60, try and go for 100-50 or something like that. Because if we're trying to set a bar or something like that, I don't know if you saw the South Carolina women's score, but they won, I think it was like 113-38 against like College of Charleston or something like that. So who knows how good they're obviously trash, but for them to win by like 90 points is just insane. So that's a team Kentucky's get to play twice. So if you're trying to set some standards, obviously, not having Ryan, the game would have been much more different, and they probably would have won by a similar score, or if not more. But there was still a lot of good takeaways, and Elsie got her first win, so that was really cool. First career coaching win, much deserved. Ryan and Tatiana obviously won't play on the game on Sunday against Belmont, so we'll kind of be in the same situation again. But then they play on Tuesday or Wednesday next week, so we'll finally see Ryan again loading up. She'll play against Kansas State, which will be their first real game. Kansas State has a player who's going to compete for Big 12 Player of the Year. Big 12 Player of the Year. So that's when we'll really start to learn about this team. And then they've got a couple ranked games kind of coming after that. So kind of the same situation as the men's team right now, where, they blew them out and they did look genuinely really good. And it was like the smaller, minute things as opposed to actually shooting percentages, but just in terms of, playing sound basketball. And Kentucky's, just like the men's team, this women's team is deep. They went 11 players deep. And outside of maybe Cameron Roach and Emma King, everyone really played well and contributed to their minutes. So, and Emma King, she'll get back on her shot. She was 0 for 6 actually, but she got the start probably at the last minute, did not even know she was going to start, I'm sure, until maybe an hour before the game, and was like, oh, okay, I'm starting my sophomore year. And maybe some nerves got to her a bit, so I wouldn't take too much into that. But they're deep, and they've got a lot of really, really good players. So my next thing I'm going to be looking out for is for Treasure Hunt to try and do what Ryan did her freshman year, which is instead of just kind of popping up for open jumpers, which she did great of actually, is really taking it, commanding the ball, getting to the rack and everything like that, which I just assume will come over time as she adapts to the game. So, but all in all, good first 40 minutes for them.
Good first 40 minutes from both the Kentucky men's and women's team. Definitely reason for excitement on both accounts.
Absolutely. Both we got number 10 and a number 11. I think we'll both jump up a little bit in the rankings.
Yep.
Be nice. We'll try and go for that number one spot at the same time.
Especially with wins this weekend. It'll when did the new polls come out?
Always Monday, I think, for
Monday. So if two convincing victories on Sunday will definitely result in a jump for both, and I think that's something we're both expecting. It'll be fun.
Yep. So anything else you kind of want to chit chat about?
Man, I think we have hit our limit. I'm very excited about this.
I'm looking at the box score a little bit. Let me talk about just a couple of other players, because I do got a couple more little thoughts and words that I'm going to talk about. We talked about Olivia Owens and how she did really well. Looking at hers now, she had 7 points and 9 rebounds, but she did foul out. And against a team that didn't have much size, that was probably
should not have fouled out against.
Yeah, and that's probably if we're going to have to make an assumption, that's probably going to be one of her bigger issues going forward. And then kind of the same deal happened with Draeon Edwards, who I was really excited. That was the player that I really wanted to see play, and immediately picked up 2 fouls in the first, I think, 50 seconds of the game. Couldn't really get back in, never got her flow going, missed a couple of layups. So her debut didn't go nearly as well as I would have liked it, but we'll continue to see that as it goes on. And then Kiki Mckinney was steadily the second best player probably throughout, even though she had 6 points, but she had 3 rebounds, 2 assists, was playing unbelievable defense. I think she's has to be Kentucky's best player on that end, even with Ryan. So just steady all around from them. Robin Benton, the transfer from Auburn, is the player. She didn't shoot very well. She was 2 for 10, but she's the player that you could tell has played in the SEC for 2 years.
Yeah.
Was easily one of the smarter players on the court and all that. So that's about all I got there.
Well, that's a lot of exciting stuff. I am thrilled for this weekend. I was thrilled with both opening performances, and definitely looking forward to Sunday. I think Sunday is going to be the first time, at least on the men's side, that we can go, all right, let's what is this team actually? And that's definitely what I'm looking forward to.
Like I said, this time when we do this podcast again next Friday, we'll really know where we're standing at. We'll get a much better idea. So we'll be able to crap all over this team if we need to then. And I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, are you ready to wrap it up here, Jackie?
Let's get out of here.
All right, buddy. Well, it's good to go. Where can they find your work? I'd never say that, but where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Reach out to me via email at jpilgrim@KentuckySportsRadio.com. Love talking to the fans. If you have any questions or whatever, definitely enjoy the feedback, and looking forward to keeping the show going. We're having a lot of fun with this.
Maybe we'll have to do a mailbag one day.
We will. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you want to follow me, my name is Zack Geoghegan, KSR, or on Twitter, I am Geoghegan, KSR. That's Geoghegan, the triple G's. That's all I got, though, Jack. Roundball Roundup. Woody's Roundup is rounded up.
Peace out.
Woody's Roundup.